Yeah, g'day. Obviously, we need to have a bit of a chat. Yesterday, there was a planned event in Stonnington City Council called Glitter Nova, family-friendly queer, event for queer teenagers to young adults. A couple of days ago, there was a Nazi response posted to the event. Shit about pedophiles. I won't post the threat or the planned counter to the event. The whole bunch of people, myself included, called for a show of solidarity for people to rock up outside the event. To protect that event from any neo-Nazi parasites in the area. Yesterday, Stonnington City Council cancelled the event. However, all of the legends who were planning to show solidarity knew that they had to rock up anyway, so that's exactly what they did. So you ended up with hundreds of legends out the front of the Victorian Pride Centre in St Kilda. So I want to have a chat about all of these elements because I think it's important to kind of debrief and talk about where to from here and what exactly was gained yesterday and lost. This planned response was organised by National Socialist Network Neo-Nazis, a group led by Tom Sewell. They did try to recruit other people. I certainly saw them sharing that event at some point yesterday in the daytime before the cancellation into, Cooker-style conspiracy telegram groups. These neo-Nazis, they view the Cookers, the conspiracists, as useful idiots. But the whole point of this for a group like NSN is free advertising. It's pretty simple. That's the whole entire point. Free advertising. Do you know how I know they don't really care about actual child grooming? I'll tell you how I know. Because they do that themselves. They do. They groom little boys to join their accelerationist, far-right race war hate group and to train wreck their future lives. It's exactly what they do, child grooming. I don't have, personally, an irrational homophobic aversion to little boys in sequins. Do what the fuck you like, right? But I tell you what, wouldn't you rather your son in a sparkly dress and not being shamed for his gayness than seeing your son in a skull mask reading Siege and talking about race war while being on an ASIO watch list? Speaking of ASIO, they did say that kids as young as 16 are actively involved in groups like NSN. I've listened to Tom Sewell talking on overseas neo-Nazi podcasts before, extolling the virtues of recruiting little boys. I think he said something to the tune of they're a bit fresher and more dedicated and, basically more willing to train wreck their lives than the oldies who have families and all grown-ups. Sewell himself, once on another international neo-Nazi podcast, he once admitted that his own sort of teenage induction into National Socialism involved, being groomed as a kid by hanging out with adult skinheads. He said that. So these people really are fascist groomers and they come from a lineage of fascist grooming. A bit of history, actually. One of these cunts' gods is a guy called James Mason. There's a really popular catchphrase among neo-Nazis which says, read Siege. They were saying it for several years there. The book Siege, what is it? It's a series of little essays, very accelerationist. They're about, using terrorist acts to seed race war. And these essays are written by James Mason. Now, Mason was a prolific pedo, this god of modern neo-Nazis. He kept little 14-year-old girls in his house for years and, called them his girlfriends and stuff. Other neo-Nazis don't really give a shit about that. Well, they don't really give a shit about anything. They pretend to, but they don't really hold anything sacred whatsoever. They're all bone-deep hypocrites. Really, they just hate queer people. And so they see that bandwagon riding this whole anti-LGBT drag queen storytime bad trend might net them a few new members because it gains anyone traction who does it with a slightly more mainstream conservative or right-wing far-right audience. And it really is a trend. If you're not aware, as you should be, there are entire coordinated continent-wide groups in the US and across Europe who are bent around targeting family-friendly queer events with anyone in drag anywhere near them. In practice, we sort of recognise that this is just a way of reinvigorating targeting queer people for the crime of existing whilst being queer. in reality, it means they'll target anything that just has queer looking stuff at it. Case in point, let's look at this event. Let's look at this flyer and what's happening at it. Here's a schedule for what was planned to be happening at Glenanova. Yeah, look, if you see at the start at 6:30 p.m, drag artist start, so presumably a drag artist existed in the building somewhere. Later on, 20 minutes of satanic drag performances at 7:35 p.m. But let's look at what else is going on here. Other activities: chill zone, grooming, drag garment making, creative garment making, bracelet station. Oh my God, thank you so much to these noble conservatives for stopping children from making gay bracelets, you fucking absolute warriors, you know? Thank you. You know, the next generation thanks you. Thank God they don't get to go into a photo booth. That sounds like grooming if I've ever heard of it. Oh my God, gay photo booths. You know what though, mate? I don't give a fuck if the entire thing was drag. I don't care if it was actually a multi-dimensional fucking 4D drag mainlining extravaganza, fuck ya. It's fine either way. Who cares? At this point, if you haven't taken the time to understand why we aren't defending the sexualization of children, but rather the free expression in civil society of fucking LGBT people of all ages to simply embrace culture and family-friendly entertainment, then I have to actively assume you are either, well, if not a neo-Nazi, then definitely a queerphobe. Because it's your job right now to just find out for yourself that family-friendly drag is actually really sweet and fine and family-friendly. Because, look, I'm not queer, mate, but I sure found out really easily when I needed to for my own sake, just by searching online using popular internet searching services and reading and watching myself for a few minutes. That's all it took. How it is that family-friendly drag performances are not actually sexualizing children. I found it so easy. If you haven't done that yet, but are actively engaged in all that shit on the other side, I have to assume that you don't want to find out, and I can only think of a couple of reasons why you don't want to. The big elephant in the room is the fact that Stonington City Council cancelled the event, right? It's not the first time I've seen a government body or a bureaucratic body or an organisation cancel an event for LGBT solidarity or even just for the community in the face of threats from the far right. Numerous drag queen story times have had to be cancelled in previous years in the US. I think even here before, yes, from my vague recollection, because I've been engaging in this kind of thing for years now, seeing these assholes target events like this. Recently, a plan simply to show rainbow lights over the Shrine of Remembrance was cancelled by, I think, the War Memorial after far-right people and cookers started carrying on and making threats. No people involved, they're just fucking lights, mate. In this case, Stonington said they would merely postpone, not delay. That doesn't really matter, because in doing so, regardless, they handed a win to neo-Nazis, and they sent a very direct message to queer kids themselves. If you are a council and you host or platform an LGBT-friendly family event for queer kids or whatever, and you cancel it in the face of hostility, the very direct message you're sending to those Nazis and to those queer kids is that all queer events can be cancelled just by making threats. If you merely postpone, that's just as bad, because they will absolutely have every reason to do the same thing again and show up to the new date, except this time you're giving them more time and confidence to organise a bigger chunk of far-right fuckheads to attend. If you're an organisation who wants to platform queer events or causes at a time where it seems safe and cushy and family friendly for you to do so, but you dip out as soon as a far-right threat occurs, and you're doing this in a world where you already know, as we all do, that the far-right anti-LGBT threat exists, then as far as I'm concerned, you come across to me as only ever having wanted to pinkwash or queerwash your events calendar. If you don't know what I mean by that, well, in this case, I basically mean the safe commodification or utilisation of gay rights as aesthetics by corporations, or in this case bureaucracies. If you're going to take the queer community on board, you have to take the dangers they face with them, because you might be able to cancel your queer friendly event, but queer kids do not get to cancel their queerness in the face of neo-Nazism. We do live in the world we live in. Queer rights are under attack, and so this is a message to councils. Hear this. You are right to host queer family friendly events. Yes, you are. Thank you. But you cannot walk that back when they begin to be threatened by a handful of parasites. And that's what it was. It was a handful. You need to accept that these are events not for you or for your events calendar, but for the community. And if the community offers to help consolidate these events when they're under threat, as they did, then you need to accept that help and not cop the fuck out and leave that community hanging. It is better to have never arranged the event and perhaps just leave it to queer community orgs and the like than to have scheduled something like that and then cancelled it. That only hurts queer kids. But because the queer community and people in solidarity with them are all such fucking staunch legends in Melbourne, and because they all knew they needed to organise and consolidate, regardless of what some fucking council did, they all went anyway. So what did we have? 200 or more people. A little hard to tell because it was a bit kettled between a very busy road and the building kind of on a pretty narrow street. So any counts are a little bit untrustworthy, but I think more than 200 people. Very short notice too, and muddied by a cancellation notification. Some of the performers even went by Belial Bazaar, and fucking good on them for being staunch enough to do so. And everyone had a great time by all reports. What we had in opposition was 5 man cave alco dad AVO guys who came out of some bushes like a rock spider to counter and then got fucked off in minutes. Proud Boys. They are, let me say this again, man cave alco dad apprehended violence order guys. Medavos. That's an acronym. Medavos. That's what Proud Boys are. Man cave alco dad apprehended violence order guys. They all have a man cave. They are all sad alco dads, and they have all had an apprehended violence order out against them from who else? A woman. Very, very lonely guys. Please make no mistake about that. Medavos. Moving on from Medavos to the legends who rallied yesterday. You understood the assignment. You did the job. You actually significantly reduced any W that might otherwise have been handed to the neo-Nazi child groomers. The trick from now on is to only do nothing more than exactly what the fuck you did yesterday. Hundreds turned out. That is enough. For these parasites, we don't need a mass movement. We don't need 1 million people. All we need is enough people to peacefully put some space between a family-friendly event and the parasites. Seems to me that VicPol do things like go out and cordon them off because they always rock up in these situations, don't they? They can't help it. So nobody needs to do any hero shit. All you got to do is exactly what you did. Councils in future can make themselves useful by not cancelling, no, continuing the event and perhaps establishing a little cordoned off path into the event that that people going to the event itself can go into, and any supporting legends can just stand around it. Supporters can then simply rinse and repeat. No need to change, grow or anything. If you win, good job, keep going. Next time, get your homie to come with you. If you do that every time, you will make it impossible for parasites to ruin queer events. That's the job. That's exactly what you did. The job for councils is to grow some spine I know you'd like your warm and fluffy LGBT events to happen in a world without neo-Nazi parasites. I'm sure we all would. But we don't get that luxury for the time being, seems to me. What you do get is hundreds of community members willing to help your event out. So next time, take the help instead of handing an L to queer kids for no fucking reason whatsoever. Because I can promise you this, with the amount of supporters who showed up yesterday to protect that event, if you had have let that event happen, it would have gone down fine.